Hey guys, if this is your first time to my channel, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Emily and today I am putting my fortune teller skills to use because I am going to be predicting what the new Dominique Cosmetics Lemonade palette is going to look like. So palette predictions is going to be a new series on my channel that I am starting today. And of course this is inspired by Makeup Struggles palette redesign videos that she does on her channel. She started this whole movement of people redesigning palettes, and if you have not checked her out yet, please do that because she makes absolutely incredible videos and you will get more of a feel of what this type of video is. This is only going to apply to palettes that we have seen sneak peeked either in black and white photos or if we've just seen the cover of the palette or maybe the theme of the palette. This is not going to apply to anything that we've seen leaked where you can see the colors of the shades of the inside of the palette. The palette that I was most inspired to do this type of video on is the new Dominique Cosmetics Lemonade palette. Now this line was created by Dominique, who is a YouTuber, and she has a very large following. And she has a couple million subscribers, and she has come out with one palette before, which was called the Latte palette. And that one was more neutrally toned, but it had a couple pops of unique, colorful shadows in it. When I heard that she was going to be releasing this Lemonade palette, I immediately put it on the top of my radar because I am obsessed with yellows and pinks and corals and bright summery shades, and I think this is the perfect time to release a really bright and colorful and lemonade-y palette because it is almost summer. And what do you think of when you think of summer? I don't know about you, but I definitely think of a nice tall glass of lemonade. So far we have only seen the outside packaging of this palette, and a couple days ago Trendmood posted that she is also going to be releasing a few liquid lipsticks with the collection. So not only is it the palette, but there is a couple liquid lipsticks to go along with the palette, but we're not really going to be touching base on those today. There is no set launch date for this palette, and we don't have a price point yet. I believe the Latte palette was around the $40 to $45 range. And I don't think that's too expensive for a palette. It's a pretty standard price when it comes to kind of middle ground Sephora priced eyeshadows. Now this brand is sold on Dominique's website, and I heard that they're coming into Ulta as well. They might already be in Ulta, I'm not 100% sure, but I have been paying a lot more attention to her and her cosmetics line because as soon as she posted the outside packaging to this palette, I was immediately drawn in. Now, I kind of have high hopes for this palette, and I have high expectations, and the reason why I do is because I've watched a few reviews on the Latte palette and it seemed like a lot of people really did enjoy that formula that she has created. Seems like all the mattes were really buttery and blendable, and it seems like the metallics were really nice and pigmented and very out there and in your face. Like I said earlier, she also did put a few pops of color in the palette that were a little bit more unique than the typical pop of color we see in palettes. Typically we see an orange or a red. Lately it's been a blue, but she put in a nice matte teal shade and a nice deep, rich, purpley fuchsia tone. And I think that it was kind of unique for her to pop those into a more so neutral palette. So I definitely think that this palette is going to have a lot of yellows and a lot of pinks because as you can see it's called the Lemonade palette, but the outside packaging is pink, so I immediately thought of pink lemonade. So last night, really late at night actually, at like 2 a.m, I got the gears turning in my head and I started to create colors that I think that she might come out with and that what I would like to see her come out with. So without further ado, this is what the palette looks like that I think that she might actually come out with. Now since her first launch was a neutral palette with a few pops of colors, I don't really think that she'll put that many neutrals in this palette. Now, I could be really kind of overshooting it here by making it an all colorful palette. I'm sure that she will have a couple neutrals in the palette, but this is what I am hoping for. This is my best case scenario here. And I don't really think that she's going to put that many neutrals in this palette because she put so many in the last palette, and that was a coffee themed palette. It was called the Latte palette, so it makes sense to have browns and neutrals and whatnot. And she stuck pretty close to theme on that palette. But this palette is called the Lemonade palette, so why wouldn't she put in a bunch of different tones that are based off of different types of lemonade? I mean, come on, it's a lemonade palette, you gotta put in a bunch of lemonade colors. So starting off with the first shade that I put in the palette, I decided to go with a light baby pink matte. And I wanted to put in a pink transition shade to work with some of the more berry tones that I have in this palette and to work with that nice shimmer that you see next to it. And I think that baby pinks actually really work well with yellows and even with the green. I mean, I think that all these colors work together, obviously. That's why I chose them. But I think that the baby pink can be a little intimidating at first, especially when you see the yellow and you see the green and you're like, how the heck am I going to make an eye look with that? But I feel like those colors specifically go really well together. And because this is a summery palette, I really wanted to kind of amp up the color a little bit. Speaking of summer, I don't have air conditioning and I'm currently dying of heat stroke. The next color that I wanted to put in this palette is a duochrome warm golden pink. So I really wanted there to be a really nice, bright, standout lid shade in this palette. And I absolutely love golden pink duochrome shades. I think shades like this work really nicely with the yellows. I think they work really nicely with the berry tone. And I think it also works really nicely with the pink. And if you're feeling adventurous, I feel like you could put that mint green that's on the bottom of the palette in the crease and then just pat this kind of goldeny pink duochrome onto your lid and you'll totally have summery watermelon vibes. Now the next shade that I wanted to put in the palette is a mid-toned warm peach matte shade. And I chose to put this color in because it's more so of a toned down peachy shade. It's not super intense or super corally. It's definitely more so of a peach. But I wanted to put in something that was a little bit more neutral, if you will, to kind of balance out some of the brighter shades. And obviously peach goes with all of these colors that I've picked in the palette. So I wanted something that would be universally kind of flattering with the rest of the shades that I chose. And I chose a mid-toned peach instead of a lighter toned peach because I really wanted this palette to be able to work for multiple skin tones. And I feel like if I put in a very traditional kind of lighter pinky peach shade, it might not work for people with deeper skin tones because I wanted to keep other skin tones in mind when I was creating this. The next color that I chose to put in this palette is a strawberry pink matte. And I wanted to put a strawberry colored shade in this palette because strawberry lemonade, come on. That's what the front of the palette looks like to me. It either looks like strawberry lemonade or raspberry lemonade. So I definitely think that she might put in a strawberry toned color. Now I don't know if she's going to put in a matte, to be honest. She might end up putting in a shimmer because I feel like more people are comfortable with using colorful shimmers and then using some more muted tones in the crease. But for me, I freaking love color and I love colorful mattes and I love strawberry berry toned matte shades. So I feel like this was perfect for the palette and I really wanted to represent that strawberry lemonade shade. So the last color that I chose to put in this palette is a blackberry matte shade. And I wanted there to be a colorful, deepening shade that works together with the pinks, but would also work really well with the yellows. And I feel like yellow and purple go together really well, and obviously pink and berry and purple go together perfectly. And I even think you could match this with the mint because there are no rules to makeup, and who's anyone to say that mint and blackberry do not go together, because I think that they do. When I was looking up pictures of different types of lemonade to kind of base my colors off of, I came across some blueberry lemonade and some blackberry lemonade, and I wanted a color in here to really represent those deeper tones of berries that you can put in lemonade. But moving on to the next shade, I put in a pale yellow matte shade, and I really wanted a nice light but still really vibrant pale yellow shade to act as a transition shade for the rest of the yellows that we are about to get into. The next shade in the palette is obviously the most lemonade-y of the entire palette. I feel like this palette is definitely going to have a really bright, almost neon-esque yellow matte shade that really represents lemonade, because what would a lemonade palette be without a very bright yellow matte? I mean, come on, it's a lemonade palette. Bright, sunny yellow is the first thing you think of when you think of the word lemonade. So I definitely think there's going to be a shade like this in the palette, and honestly, I'm going to be a little shocked if there isn't. So the next shade that I wanted to put in is something to kind of deepen up the rest of the yellows with. Because this is a lemonade palette, I wanted to put a decent amount of different tones of yellows in this palette. So I opted out for a deep, warm, yellowy mustard shade. This shade is a lot more neutral compared to some of the shades that I have chosen in this palette, and I think that Kristen might choose something like this for the palette because you do really need something to kind of deepen up those lighter yellows with. And you could just opt out for an orange, but then it kind of takes away from the lemonade vibe, and then it just starts to look like a sunset. So I feel like putting in a deep yellow would be a really smart move on Kristen's part because then you can still have an all yellow lemonade-y look, but have a lot of depth and dimension in the actual look itself. The second to last shade that I put in this palette is a really, really foiled mint green shade. And I wanted to put a mint green shade in here to represent the mint leaves that we see oftentimes in different types of lemonade. When I was looking on Google for some inspiration for these shades, I found a bunch of different types of lemonade with these little mint green leaves in the actual drink itself. So I really felt like I needed to bring that into the palette because I feel like a lot of times lemonade is associated with mint. And I feel like this shade is just so beautiful with the yellows. You know, yellow and mint really does go together. It's going to be very bright and very out there, but it's a lemonade palette. So let's just go all out here. And I'm really hoping that she puts something in the palette like this because I love this shade. And if this shade looks familiar, it is Natasha Denona's Mint Frost from the Tropics palette. This is the only shade in the palette that I actually took another eyeshadow that was already on the market and used that for my shade because this shade is just so perfect on its own. I don't need to find anything that looks like this on the internet. This already exists and I wanted to just put it in here because this to me is the standard of a really nice foiled mint shade. And the last shade that I really hope that she puts in the palette is a mid-toned mint matte shade that was so many M's at one time. I'm really hoping that she does incorporate the mint in the palette somehow, and I hope that she puts in not only a foiled mint but a matte mint to really kind of go together. You could do a really simple but really colorful and effortless two eyeshadow look with these two shades, and it would look like you spent a bunch of time doing your makeup because these colors are just so beautiful and people don't really see this all that much. I think that the combination of the foiled mint shade and a matte mint shade is very unique to the market, and I think a lot of people were really wanting that with the Natasha Denona Tropic palette, but she didn't really give a whole lot of colorful mattes. She more so gave a bunch of colorful metallics, and then the mattes were more so neutral tones. So if Kristen were to put in a matte mint shade, I think that it would be kind of game-changing. I mean, there are some palettes that have the matte mint, but not a whole lot. And typically when I do see a palette have a matte minty green shade, it's typically limited edition. So if she made something like this in her line and made it permanent, to me, I think she would be a trendsetter in the makeup industry. My voice is going out on me and I'm kind of just a hot mess right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video here. Now, do you like what I came up with? Do you think that it's a little bit too out there? And do you think that Kristen is going to come out with something like this? Because honestly, I'm not so sure. Like I said, I'm really, really hoping that she does come out with something like this because I think that this is beautiful. I think a lot of people can get a lot of looks out of this. I think that this palette offers a different type of vibe than a lot of other palettes have, but I feel like you can still create a bunch of different looks with this particular color scheme. And I think that it represents lemonade perfectly. Just really hoping there's not going to be one berry, one pink, and one yellow, kind of like the Lemonade Craze palette by Maybelline was. There wasn't a whole lot of lemonade-y colors in that palette, and I was really disappointed by that, and a lot of people seem to be pretty disappointed by that. So I hope Kristen just steps it up, and I think that she will. So I hope Kristen really just brings us something that's really game-changing and really awesome for the summer. That is going to be wrapping it up for me today, guys. I do hope that you consider subscribing if you have not already. I am doing all sorts of makeup goodness on this channel, and stay tuned because I will absolutely be bringing more videos like this to my channel. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. I hope you are having an absolutely amazing day wherever you are, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye!